If the Apple event isn't on the 12th of October, then when is it? We'll be answering that and more of your questions after these headlines. The AirPods range picks up new features with a new firmware update, Apple Watch Series 7 goes on sale Friday to deliver next week, and there are real-world images. The A15 is actually even faster than Apple said it was, and what even is the Google Tensor chip? I'm Dave and I simplify Apple so that everything just works for you, and if you want the latest Apple news, leaks and rumours every weekday at 12 UTC, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and yes, let's address the elephant in the room first. What happened to the event invites that we were expecting to be coming yesterday? Couple of questions on this. Lit8 asks, I gave answers, what happened with the invites? And Team Kinetix, I gave answers, did we get the event invites? Can I get more excited about the M1X MacBook Pro yet? And no, we got no event invites yesterday, which probably means that we're not getting our event on the 12th of October, but I guess it doesn't really rule it out because there was different stuff going on yesterday with the anniversary of Steve Jobs' death. So I wouldn't be 100% surprised if we actually got the invites today instead of yesterday because there was so much going on. But at the same time, Apple almost always does it exactly a week in advance, so probably not. Which means we will probably actually see the event happen on October the 19th, which has become a busy day already, and we'll come to exactly what else is going on that day very soon. But that means we would be getting our invites next Tuesday. What does that mean for the channel? That probably means another week of padding. Sorry. We had some very salty people who are annoyed that I've mentioned what the M1X is more than once. So sorry about that, guys. But if Apple insists on not releasing it yet, I'll have to keep talking about it. So, some of the other news that we've got going on. Apple Watch Series 7 goes on sale this Friday to deliver next week, and there are real-world images, and I still don't like them. Okay, I'm not sure how much of this dislike comes from the fact that I really wanted to see those flat edges. I literally drew this up in 3D in like August last year, pretty much before anyone else was talking about it, I think. And it was only a guess, and then basically everyone else went, yeah, that's what they're going to do, and then they didn't instead. I guess we'll see once they arrive with people what people actually think of them, but from the images that I can see, and I'll put them up over here so that you can take a look while I'm talking about it, but it looks really kind of cramped almost because the bezels are so small and it's got that quite aggressive curve to the screen. It actually looks like stuff doesn't quite fit. It looks like some of the UI elements, especially the text in the top corners of that screen, doesn't look like it's supposed to be there. It looks like the software isn't really set up for this kind of curved glass, which would make sense if it was originally going to be a flat display, and then they've added this curved glass, and I think they've probably come up with that, like, edged numerals clock. I think that's kind of a lastminute.com thing that they've used to kind of go, yeah, look, we meant to do this the whole time, and it just doesn't quite sit right with me. So for me, this looks a little bit wrong. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Next up, A15's real-world performance. Anandtech has reported that the A15 is actually around 62% faster than the competition and not the 50% that Apple reported. This is due to TSMC's 5nm plus architecture allowing faster frequencies, system cache being doubled to 32 megabytes, dwarfing the competition and adding to efficiency, and the A15 Performance cores also getting a 50% bump in L2 cache from 8 to 12 megabytes, which is more than double that on the Snapdragon 888. Anandtech says Apple's A15 Performance cores are extremely impressive. Usually increases in performance always come with some sort of a deficit in efficiency, or at least flat efficiency. Here, Apple's managed to reduce the power whilst increasing performance, meaning the energy efficiency is improved by 17% on peak performance versus the A14. So for a chip that everyone said wasn't really much of an improvement, this seems to be quite an improvement. Now, the 19th of October, as we mentioned, is already a busy date because Google yesterday also announced that on the 19th of October they will be revealing their new Pixel phones, which are powered by Google's own chips for the first time. So this is the Google Tensor SoC, and it's a weird one. So the Google Tensor is an 8-core chip, which includes 4 Cortex A55 efficiency cores. That makes a lot of sense. Then 2 Cortex A76 Performance-ish cores, and a pair of Cortex X1 Performance cores. And for reference, the Snapdragon 888, which is the fastest Snapdragon that Qualcomm makes right now, only has one of those X1 cores at the top. Yet there's a couple of really weird things. Those A76 cores are a couple of years out of date. There are A78 cores that exist already, which are faster and more energy efficient. So it seems very strange that Google has used these Cortex cores inside their Tensor chip. Now, the Cortex designs are basically the kind of stock designs that you can buy from ARM. Apple used to use Cortex cores and then moved on to designing their own cores, which is what we have now with the Avalanche and Blizzard cores in A15. The other thing that's really weird about this is that there were some leaked benchmarks from Geekbench, and the scores are like insanely low for the amount of hardware here, so it seems like this chip may well have been nerfed in order to kind of protect the performance numbers. Not quite sure. Maybe it was running in a super low power state or something along those lines. Geekbench gave it a lowly 414 in single core and 2074 in multi-core, and that's only about 25% of the speed of the iPhone 13 in single core performance and less than half of the multi-core score for the iPhone 13's A15 chip as well, because they are scoring somewhere around 4700. So this suggests, as I say, that this chip is not running at full performance, so we'll have to wait and see what that performance is going to look like. That being said, because on the 19th we're now looking at potentially having an Apple event for Macs, as well as this Google event for the Pixel phones with this Google Tensor chip, it's going to be a very busy day for people, and something's going to get overshadowed, and I have a feeling it's not going to be MacBooks. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. Are you excited about Google producing their own chips? I do think it's just cool to have more competition in the market, because it is going to push everyone to do better, and I think that can only be a good thing. Right, let's get into some more iCave answers. John Malkin asks, iCave answers, will iPad Air get A15 Bionic before the end of the year? And I think I've pretty much answered this in a previous video. I don't think it will, and that's purely because I don't think if they were going to do it, they would have saved it for past where we did our iPad event. They could have quite easily just said, and also you can now get an A15 based iPad Air with center stage maybe, but they didn't. So I think if they were going to do it, that's when they would have done it. At the moment, it looks like that's going to be saved maybe for next year. Maybe they're going to alternate between iPad Air and iPad Minis getting updates, and they jump 2 chips at a time, and then they can say how much faster it is than the previous version each time. I think it's a bit of a silly thing. I think it would make much more sense for Apple to use the same board inside the iPad Air and the iPad Mini. Then you're, again, reducing the amount of stuff that you need to create. They're very similar products. Very similar design language and everything else. Not that the design matters too much, but you could pretty much use the same board, I'm sure, and flash it with a slightly different firmware for the different products. But let me know if you can think of a reason why they couldn't do that. Sander Hoogeland asks, iCave answers, do you think the rumoured high power mode for the M1 Max might involve allowing the M1X to temporarily reach higher clock speeds, either as well as or instead of using different amounts of cores? Also, could the M1X run at a higher base frequency than the M1 since efficiency is not the focus? Yeah, there's definitely possibilities that could be what they're doing. It could well be basically like a turbo mode that you would have on Intel chips, where they turbo up to a higher clock speed when they can, when there's no thermal issues and when there's no battery issues. So that's quite possible, but I guess we just need to wait and see on that. Next up, Steve Dubb asks, iCave answers, can you tell me what books you have on the shelves? I've read some of them, but others I can't make out. So yeah, there is the Tim Cook and Johnny Ive books by Leander Caney from Cult of Mac. It's a book called I, Steve. There's How to Think Like Steve Jobs, and then there's YouTube Secrets by Sean Cannell and YouTube Formula by Darrell Eves. And then on the other side of me, up here with the shoes, you've got jab, 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 right hook, and Ask Gary V. But in all honesty, I'm more of an audio books kind of guy, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to include a free trial to Audible link in the description, and also Amazon links for these books. But the ones that I've done as audiobooks recently would be Steve Jobs by Walter Isaacson, I Was, and Insanely Simple by Ken Siegel. And I've got to say that Insanely Simple by Ken Siegel, I mentioned it in yesterday's show as well, it's very, very interesting. Talks all about the kind of the marketing of Apple, that Chiat Day, their kind of marketing firm that did things like 1984 and a whole bunch of other marketing campaigns for them, including the iPod stuff, I think. It goes through a lot of the kind of thinking behind all that stuff, so it's absolutely fascinating. And Josh asks, I gave answers, do you think there will be a new HomePod by the end of the year or next year? And Josh, if you're asking about the HomePod kind of nothing, the one that was discontinued for the HomePod Mini to kind of stay as the only HomePod, I'm not sure that Apple has plans to bring that back in any kind of meaningful way that would still look like the HomePod. I've got a feeling when Apple has been discontinuing stuff like the iMac Pro, like the HomePod, and like a few of the other things that Apple's kind of discontinued and just kind of stopped selling, it's not something that they have any plans to bring back straight away. If they were waiting to bring out a new iMac called an iMac Pro, they would have just kept the iMac Pro around until it was ready. And the same with the HomePod. I don't see them kind of discontinuing the HomePod, keeping the Mini around, and then going, oh, and now the new HomePod's back 3 months later. I think we might even see the HomePod Mini just being called the HomePod eventually, but I think there's going to be a bigger form factor change, or maybe a branding change, before we actually see a return to that kind of size of audio stuff. I think what we are more likely to see is that kind of integrated system for the lounge, where you'll get like a sound bar that's got Apple TV and stuff like that built into it, maybe LiDAR, motion sensors and that sort of thing, so that gaming can be a bit more immersive. I don't see that Apple, if they were to go for lounge gaming, would go for the kind of console Xbox, PlayStation kind of market, as much as they would probably go more along the lines of a better quality of Wii, maybe with the motion control, or Kinect, or something along those lines. I think it's probably going to be more about movement and being able to tie it into Apple Fitness, and maybe making fitness more fun for kids because it can be tracked through their movements, something like that, as well as obviously entertaining games and more kind of family style type stuff. Sort of goggle-free VR almost, where it tracks your motion while you play a game of that sort. Or maybe it will be to work alongside the Apple AR glasses or VR headsets. We will see, but I think that is more likely the way that the bigger HomePod side of things will go. Anyway, that's it for today's show, guys. If you didn't hit subscribe yet, please do that, because if you got this far through the video, you must have kind of liked something about it. And if you've got a question to ask me, hashtag #ICaveAnswers down in the comments section, and you will get it answered in a future show. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.